Hi everyone, I'm Dom Griffin, I'm a film critic and you're watching the Armchair Auteur. This is an ongoing video series I do where we talk about new movies, old movies, screenplay analysis, television, series reviews, that sort of thing. So if you like movies, you like movie adjacent popular culture, and like to see somebody pick those things apart, you're in the right place and you should consider subscribing. Today, I'm going to be talking about the new Marvel series, What If, the new animated series set in and around the MCU that's launching on Disney Plus on Wednesday. I got to watch the first 3 episodes of the show this past weekend, so I'm going to share some first impressions and thoughts with you. It doesn't really seem fair to call it a full-on review because I can't get into like too many plot specifics and there's not a ton to analyze, but I don't know, I know people are interested in the show and I watched it and that's what this channel's for. If you are unfamiliar with what If is, it is a former Marvel comic series that basically would do these like one-off and short stories of taking basic things that have happened in the Marvel universe and then like redoing them. So it would be like, what if Uncle Ben hadn't died? What would that mean for Spider-Man's life? Or sometimes they would be like more crazy ideas. It'd be like, what if like Thor was Venom, stuff like that or whatever. When I was a kid, all of my favorite what if stories were like the kind of goofier comedy ones. They were generally speaking a little more tongue-in-cheek and kind of playful. They essentially felt like 22-page issue comics that were like Family Guy cutaway gags. When I wanted more serious stuff involving the what if premise, I typically would read DC's version of this general concept, which was Elseworlds, where DC would take, you know, like Batman, but it would be Batman if Batman like fought Jack the Ripper or like whatever. If you read a lot of DC stuff, you're probably way more familiar with the Elseworlds concept because those have been adapted into animated series and movies and stuff before, such as Justice League Flashpoint Paradox is very heavily a Elseworlds style story, or Justice League Gods and Monsters that Bruce Timm created, another thing where it's like an alternate history version of DC superhero concepts. So going into the idea that Marvel is now doing this animated and within the actual MCU and the branding on Disney Plus and all that, I was curious to see like where they would go with it exactly. Because like I said, some of the stories Marvel has done over the years with the What If brand are pretty interesting. Oftentimes ideas from those stories can end up coming in later into like actual canon when the writers inspired by them find ways to bring them into the fold. Like a lot of modern Marvel comics all feel like they're essentially thrown away what if stories, but they're happening for real. So the idea of them doing this show and doing it animated with much of the original actors from the MCU sprawling ensemble voicing their own characters, with some exceptions, it seems like a new fun thing for them to do. And given how tired much of the MCU is slowly becoming, faster becoming for some people, anything new could be really good for them and the brand. So how is it? It's fun. It's mostly pretty fun. So far there's 3 episodes. The first is, what if Peggy Carter had gotten the super soldier serum instead of Steve? The second one is, what if the Ravagers kidnapped T'Challa instead of Peter Quill? And the third one I can't really even explain without spoiling it because the what if in question is revealed at the end like some kind of twist. My TLDR on this opening salvo of episodes is that What If's format feels more limiting than it ought to, and I can't tell if that's because of its half-hour runtime or the fact that we're unlikely to see anything too ambitious from this project because it fundamentally can't overshadow the proper MCU in terms of scope or scale. For instance, the first episode is arguably the most consistent so far, but it feels so slight, so basic, and so obvious that it's hard to call it a home run. It feels like a test pilot in every sense, a proof of concept that gets by on the charm of Haley Atwell's voice work more than the execution of its ideas. The second one is way more fun and takes more liberties with its core setup, moving further from the basic branching timelines concept. The show never comes out and says that each tale Jeffrey Wright's Uatu The Watcher shows us is a branching timeline the TVA from Loki would otherwise prune, but it's pretty obvious from the iconography and the show immediately following that one that you're meant to draw that specific conclusion. And that T'Challa Star-Lord episode, despite being a real blast, shows how that concept can be restricting, because it's clear the creative team is coming up with fun story ideas, but the most fun ones do not fit what makes What If work. A really good what if story should take one thing from the canonical history of the Marvel Universe and then flip it on its head and then have stuff come out of that. Like that's the basic idea. What if blank and then a bunch of stuff? Okay, like it's really that straightforward. The first episode, what if Peggy was Captain America instead of Steve? Very basic, very obvious. There's some ways you can take that. It immediately causes a ripple effect that you can follow dramatically, like good stuff. That's like the basic, that's what you gotta do. The T'Challa Star-Lord episode is better and it's way more fun and it's like just more enjoyable in general. But so many of the things in the story that are like fun or interesting or different aren't tethered to the initial inciting act of T'Challa being taken into space instead of Quill. It's stuff that just is different even if the differences could not have come from that core change to the timeline, basically. And that's fine. It's all make-believe anyway. Who gives a shit? But it kind of proves that, like, the actual basic what-if concept, most of the episodes that are going to be the basic what-if concept are going to be like the first episode, which is, like, fine. It's like a solid episode. And all the ones that are actually fun are only going to be fun because they basically just tell that concept to go fuck itself and do whatever they want instead. And I kind of applaud that. By the third episode, which I can only really describe as, like, recontextualizing phase 1 of the MCU into like a whodunit, like a murder mystery. That may be a bad way to describe it once you actually see that episode when it airs in a few weeks, but that's how it came off to me. And when you get to the whodunit part, when you get to like who's responsible, it's like so laughable and like kind of stupid that I loved it, because all of my favorite what if stories from when I was a kid are like that. They all have like really ridiculous perspectives on a way that a story could have gone differently. Like, the idea is that the Marvel Universe is so rich and detailed and insane that if you just pluck little things here or there or minorly alter something, you can get vastly different results. And sometimes those vastly different results can be sad or tragic in a way that you did not anticipate from something involving goofier characters, or it could be the inverse. It could be that it tries to tell a story that's like really serious, but is just funny because it's just funny. Again, I can't spoil episode 3 of What If, but when you get to like the twist thing in it, just thinking about it right now is kind of making me laugh, because I was like, this is a cool idea, but I just can't take it seriously. Like, by the time you get to it, it's like, I was a bit so busy just like, I cannot believe that's what this episode is about, that as the episode's themes were like coming into focus and made zero sense, I was still just thinking about the twist, being like, wow, they really fucking did this. And like, part of me just wants more of that. I'm okay with more episodes that are maybe not very good or like on an objective level, well done stuff. But if they can make me react the way I did to the end of episode 3 every week, then yeah, this would be like the best thing Marvel's done in years. More likely though, there's going to be way more episodes like the first episode, which will take a very obvious story and tell it exactly kind of the way you're expecting. It would be nice, ideally, if more episodes were like episode 2, because that one comes the closest to feeling like what this series should be like. Like, it's actually pretty charming. All told, the show is a bit of a mixed bag so far. The cel-shaded animation style is an acquired taste, the action is hit or miss, but it is pleasant that the vast majority of the sprawling MCU ensemble returned to do the voice work, because it makes for these bittersweet moments, like one last go-around with Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa, as well as these baffling decisions where you realize that Benicio del Toro was willing to come back to voice the Collector, but that Batista isn't back as Drax. And if one of those two people is going to say no to being in an animated series, I think you know which one you would assume it to be. Also, I don't think I can actually show you guys B-roll of this because I don't remember being in the trailer, but the Collector in episode 2, voiced by Benicio del Toro, looks like a JoJo character. Like, he's just ripped for no reason, and it feels like a completely different interpretation of the character that, once again, could not be different from MCU canon because of the premise of the episode. It just seems like a wild thing they decided to do that looks really cool, but doesn't make any sense. And I'm not gonna lie, I would love more of that. I would love more random variations on what we know from the MCU, just going off into all sorts of kaleidoscopic directions, rather than kind of what the first episode promises, which is, here's a thing you know from the Marvel movies, and here's how it's kind of different. That's technically what makes what if stories good. So like, on a technical level, I rock with it and it's well done enough, but that's not enough to make me want to watch it every week. To make me want to watch it every week, I want to see more weird stuff like T'Challa being in space. T'Challa being in space for 28 minutes or however long that episode is way more fun than all of the T'Challa being in space stuff from the recent Black Panther comic that I found to be very boring, so that was kind of pleasant. But honestly, the sweet spot for this show is whatever the hell they did in the third episode that I can't even explain to you. They got to do that every week. It'll be bad. It'll probably get laughed at by people, but it's what I want out of this show. Like, to me, if you're going to do What If, be as weird and ridiculous as humanly possible. Don't even bother trying to tell genuine, sincere stories. Enough of that. Let's just get weird. But, I mean, those are just my opinions about the show. Do I think people will like it? Like, if you're kind of an MCU agnostic right now, should you watch it? Maybe not. Probably not. If you like the MCU, you're going to watch it anyway. You don't need me to tell you to watch it. But I will say, I think this is going to be a fun thing to binge whenever this initial run of episodes is over. I don't think this is something I would look forward to watching every week, because the half-hour runtime and the kind of slight concept makes it feel kind of like whatever. Like I watched all three back to back very quickly, and they were just like, it was just like snacking, you know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with that, but it's just so empty calorie wise in terms of like media content that I feel like the only way to really engage with it is just to wait till it's over and watch it all at once. Because then the misses won't seem like a big deal. You'll just kind of fly by them, and then the hits will be really fun. That's how I think anyway. I doubt I'm going to bother catching up to this until it's completely finished. And I don't know, I suggest you do the same. Those are my impressions of What If, the new Marvel series, the first 2 episodes that I watched. The first one is out Wednesday, so I guess it's tomorrow from whenever this goes up. And then one every week after that. I don't even remember how many there are. A lot of them, not a lot, whatever. Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think about the show? If you have any thoughts about Marvel's What If, go to the comment section below to tell me about those thoughts right now, because I need to know what you think too. And also feel free to come back and do that later once you've actually watched the episodes yourself. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe. Hit the little bell icon so you get notifications when I put out new videos. And as always, I hope everyone's doing well, staying safe, being good to yourselves and each other. I will see you in the next video very, very soon. Thanks. Bye.